نتابع الآن أعمال المؤتمر مع الجلسة الرابعة التي تحمل عنوان تكنولوجيا.
Now keep with go on with the proceedings of the fourth session of the day, and it's going to be with the title of Future Technology. The chair of the panel is going to be Dr. Atif Al-Hamadi, Executive Vice President of Khalifa University, United Arab Emirates. In the name of Allah.
Dr. Jamal Sanad Al-Suwaidi.
Dr. Jamal Sanad Al-Suwaidi, thank you for the invitation. Your Excellencies, our honored guests, I'm honored to be with you here today with a host of speakers to discuss a very vital topic that touches upon our daily lives. It become the talk of the hour in media and social technology, which is the future technology and using it in the nanotechnology as well as social networking technology. Before we start, I would like to shed the lights on some of the information that may help us in understanding artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is the factor that helps us to use all the elements of the fourth industrial revolution, and of course now we see that wars have reached fifth generations, while our industrial revolution is only on the fourth one. The Internet of Things and 3D printing, genome technology, robotics technology, it all allows us to make use of the technology and artificial intelligence in every day-to-day task that we do. And we all know that artificial intelligence has capabilities that have exceeded human capabilities in finding out patterns and studying a lot of variations that may affect the decisions taken by human beings day to day. The artificial intelligence usage goes into the day-to-day applications in our lives, and of course, depending on it, economic decisions and healthcare decisions, and we can see its applications in healthcare systems and transport systems, and also applications that generate a huge amounts of data through using certain devices and programs. Therefore, there is no certain regulation that regulates such devices in order to make the best use of it, so the optimal use of it. So artificial intelligence is a part of a holistic system that enables taking proper decisions in sociology, economy, healthcare, and other aspects of life. We can see that the healthcare sector is one of the important aspects in which artificial intelligence may revolutionize, especially when it comes to providing healthcare with high quality and facilitating the research of accredited researchers as well. The technological development is forcing itself on the social media platforms that we use daily. This development witnessed in this field is touching our lives, even the way of us communicating with each other and knowing about products and getting information, and all of these aspects are coming from social networking. All of these elements, all of these stuff provide challenges regarding security of the human being. Therefore, we need to have ethics to govern the usage of artificial intelligence in the social media platforms, and probably it may generate more job opportunities, but other jobs are going to be threatened, for example receptionists, drivers, and so on and so forth. We're going to discuss further in these topics and shed light more on everything related to artificial intelligence, social networking, nanotechnology, in this session. I hope that it's a fruitful session and provide you with further more ideas. The first speaker of the day is Professor Tanya Prescott, Director of Sheffield Robotics Center, University of Sheffield, United Kingdom. He is a professor in Sheffield University, United Nations, in robotic cognition, and he's the head of robotics center in a multidisciplinary center. It hosts more than thousands and thousands of researchers. He helped in Scratchboard and Sherboard. These robotics are similar to animals, and it has the robotic technology and artificial intelligence as well as psychology. Professor Tanya, the floor is yours.
Good morning.
Very much for the invitation to come to Abu Dhabi and to speak at this fantastic meeting. And thank you very much to my host. You've been very generous in your hospitality, and I'm having a fantastic time. And it's great to visit here. So the word robot comes from this play by Karel Capek, Rossum's Universal Robot. And there's a picture here from one of the early presentations of this play. The robots are human-like in this play, and at the end of the play, it doesn't end well for humans. The robots take over and kill us all. So this idea that we will build machines that will eventually destroy us is an old idea. The ancient Greeks used to build these wonderfully realistic statues of people, and they used to worry that maybe the statues would wake up at night and kill them in their beds. So I am the director of Sheffield Robotics, and the goal of our center is to make sure that the outcome from the robot and AI revolution is a happy one for people. So we work to develop many different kinds of robots, including field robots such as the drone that you see here, lots of tiny little robots in the swarm, and of course industrial robots. And the goal is to ensure that these robots are developed for human good. In Sheffield, we are known, and perhaps you have heard of us, for the invention of stainless steel, and perhaps also for our cutlery, particularly our knives, which have gone around the world, and for the casting of large, these days, bespoke and special purpose steel products. But we're now also in the Industry 4.0 with the Advanced Manufacturing Park, which you see here, and the Factory 2050, which is with Boeing, Rolls-Royce, and many other manufacturers, one of the largest centers for advanced manufacturing in the UK and indeed in the world, and one of the most advanced. So I would invite you to visit Sheffield and find out how Industry 4.0 is developing in the UK. So I'd like to show you this quote. A new era of production has begun. Its principle of organization are as different from those of the industrial era, were different from the agricultural. The cybernation revolution has been brought about by the combination of the computer and the automated self-regulating machine. This results in a system of almost unlimited productive capacity, which requires progressively less human labor. Cybernation is already reorganizing the economic and social system to meet its own needs. Does anybody recognize this quote or know where it comes from? Well, you may be interested to learn that this was written in 1964. I was just 2 years old. It was the declaration of the Triple Revolution by Linus Pauling and 20 other American colleagues in a letter they sent to President Johnson. So you can see that even nearly 50 years ago, more than 50 years ago, there was concerns about the impacts of automation and robotics and how it could change the world. And you might think that, well, maybe nothing changed. Certainly for many decades, the revolution perhaps didn't materialize in the way that these visionaries had envisaged. But we can look at this graph, which shows the impact or the relationship between wages, that's compensation, the dotted line, and productivity, that's the solid line. And this is from the book by Martin Ford, Rise of the Robots. And it shows you that up until the 1970s, so up until this point here, productivity increased as the result of improvements in technology, and wages increased alongside that. But from the 1970s onwards, productivity has continued to increase, but average shop floor wages have not increased, they have stagnated. I don't think we need to look much further for the explanation of the Trump effect or for Brexit than this graph, which is for the US, but it applies also in other developed countries, that a large segment of the population feel they have been left behind and that they haven't benefited in the huge advances that we've made in productivity through digitization and automation. And I think it's our responsibility to change the situation and to make sure that the wealth is more fairly distributed. So this is an example of the kind of work I do. I build animal-like robots, but I also work on humanoids, and I attempt to program robots with models of the human mind in order to give robots human-like intelligence. I'll show a short clip. This is work with my colleague Paul Verschoor and many others in a European project.
Good morning. How are you? Do you want to play music?
Yeah, sure. Let's go.
Let's try some new rhythm.
Okay, show me.
Loop. Sliding.
Alright, loop. Then sliding.
More rhythm, please.
Oh, nice.
I feel musical symbiosis.
No, not yet.
Tap, tap. Let's try some new rhythm.
So that's just a short clip. I'm happy to show you more later. Now, what the robot is saying is somewhat scripted, but the behavior is spontaneous and is developed and the result of the internal control systems. And this is the state of the art in humanoid robots, or near to it. And so you might ask, well, we have these humanoid robots in the lab. Where are they? Why aren't they in the world today? And the answer is that we already have 7 billion humanoids, and they're biological ones. So maybe we don't need robot humanoids as much as perhaps we need other kinds of robots. And in fact, there are many robots here already. We maybe not realize that they're there or that they are robots. So we have 2 million industrial robots in the world, and that number is growing by about 18% a year. And then the rest of the robots are service robots, and we have about 0.3 million professional service robots. That's things like bomb disposal robots. This milking robot is very popular now in agriculture. It means that cows can milk themselves. They walk into the robot and the robot attaches itself and removes the milk. And it's simpler for the farmer and it's simpler for the cow. And another example is the Da Vinci surgical robot. We also have domestic robots, and we've heard about drones, but most domestic robots right now are vacuum cleaners. And I think it will soon be the case that people will not vacuum their own floors, that robots will do this job for us. In many homes that's true already. And the most common kind of professional service robot are the robots that you would find in a place like an Amazon warehouse. There are these robots that move things around, especially you see these piles of crates being shifted by robots. And there are thousands and tens of thousands of these kinds of service robots, as well as service robots for agriculture, for underwater exploration, and for the oil and gas industry, and of course robots that we send to space, such as the NASA Mars rovers. Then there are the assistive and care robots, and this is just a revolution that is beginning now. But we have driverless cars, which will be particularly useful for older people who may have difficulty driving themselves. We have home help robots, like the vacuum cleaners, but those will extend to robots that can tidy the house. We have companion robots. This robot is an example of an animal-like robot that I've been developing with my colleague Sebastian Conran. And we have robots that can help people to dress and feed and go to the restroom. And we have robots that you can integrate with yourself, such as this exoskeleton. And last year I wrote this white paper, which is available to look at, which describes how we might use robots to address the needs of our aging populations. And I would encourage you to look at it and be happy to take questions. many of the robots we have now are industrial robots. And if we look around the world, we see that there are about 74 industrial robots for every 10,000 employees. But that changes very much with different countries. And in countries such as Korea, Singapore, Germany, and Japan, there are many more robots per employee. And if we look at who's buying robots just now, most of the robots, almost a third of industrial robots are today being bought by China. And China is automating at a far faster rate than any of the Western economies. Now, the question that I always get asked and that people always want to know about is how is this going to impact on the world of work, on human jobs? And you may have come across this very well-known study by Frey and Osborne, which was published in 2013 and has already had nearly 1,900 citations. And the conclusion of the report was that 47% of US employment is at risk over the next decade or two, which is an astonishing figure. And we can discuss this report, and I have some concerns about the methodology, but I think people focus too much on this headline figure because what the report says is that these are existing jobs. It doesn't talk about the jobs that are going to be created by robotics and automation. And if we look at the second report in 2015 from Deloitte, which was generated with the help of Frey and Osborne, they looked specifically at the UK, and they saw there that 35% of UK jobs were at risk, so still a very significant number. But they said that in the last 15 years, the UK economy had lost 800,000 low-skilled jobs, but it had gained 3.5 million high-skilled, higher-paid jobs. The new jobs were paid £10,000 a year more than the jobs that had been lost. Crucially, they said, every nation and region of the UK has benefited. We estimated that this technology-driven change has added 140 billion to the UK's economy in new wages. So when we think about the impact on jobs, let's not forget that this revolution is creating new jobs, that it's creating new roles for people. Robots in particular are physical devices that need to be maintained, they need to be shipped, they need experts to ensure that they're used safely. And there will be a lot of jobs created in the new economy by automation. One of the things that the Deloitte report points out, and they do find evidence that Frey and Osborne are right about a number of jobs being affected by automation. And in particular, they saw that jobs, and this graph shows from 1 to 10, jobs ranked according to income. And they saw that the impact on jobs was particularly, if you see the ones below the line, numbers 4, 5, and 6, these are the middle income jobs. And they describe this as a hollowing out process. So the risk is the one that I mentioned before, that we risk increasing wealth inequality by destroying jobs that are middle-aged earners, and we end up just with low-paid jobs and high-paid jobs, and that there's less opportunities in between. So this is something we need to address. So you can ask how it is now, and the situation now is you might say, a robot took my job, now I have to look for a new source of monetary income. But this is how it should be. You should say, yes, a robot took my job, now I'm free to actually enjoy life. So automation brings a lot of benefits, but it's a challenge for us politically to ensure that those benefits are shared by everybody. So what's on the near horizon? We're going to have autonomous control systems running critical infrastructure such as power grids. That's happening. We're having the gradual introduction of driverless vehicles. We're having AIs that can provide rapid access to expert knowledge, and more robots entering to public and private spaces, so we will see them more in our lives. The risks are about inequality, as I've mentioned, particularly wealth inequality. There are military risks. We have robots on the battlefield making life and death decisions. There is a risk that we place too much trust in AI, because AIs right now can be very stupid and can make poor decisions. And if we rely on them, then we can be subject to their mistakes. And of course, there are risks around privacy. We heard in the last few days about the risks of putting your personal information into social media. there are risks that more and more of our data is going to be recorded and shared. And there are changes in the kinds of relationships we have. Maybe we'll have relationships, social relationships with AIs and robots. And finally, there's the question of sustainability. Can we sustain this revolution? Can we keep it going? So I want to say a little bit about the AI singularity. This is the notion that one day AIs will surpass human intelligence in every way, and where will that leave us as humans? And many people have predicted this, including Stephen Hawking, who passed away last week. He said a couple of years ago that the development of full artificial intelligence could put an end to the human race. It's similar to the notion that Karl Capek had in his play about robots. And Ray Kurzweil has presented a more optimistic vision, but he has also said that machines will surpass humans perhaps as soon as 2045. He suggested we will build computers as powerful as the human brain by around 2030, and that we already by now should have computers as powerful as the mouse brain. And that prediction is actually fairly accurate. We do indeed have computers that are close to matching the mouse brain in terms of capacity, if not their ability to think and behave. And we've all heard about Moore's law, that the number of transistors in an integrated circuit doubles approximately every 2 years, and that this has been true for the last 30 years. However, this revolution in computing is starting to flatline. If we look at different aspects of computer performance, we're seeing that they're flattening out. And in order to continue to increase the speed of computers, we're having to rely on having more cores in our machines. In other words, more computers, rather than making those computers faster. And AI is not simply a problem of scaling up. And what we've seen in the last decade, I think, is largely a result of AI techniques that were developed in the 1980s and even earlier, being applied on very, very fast computers to very large data sets. This doesn't mean we've solved all the problems that are required to understand intelligence. It just means that our computers are much better, and we can now really take advantage of these algorithms. There's still a lot to understand and explain about how intelligence operates in humans. So I see 3 tipping points. Driverless vehicles. We know there was a setback this week with Uber, whose driverless vehicle caused a fatality. Maybe it's too early to actually put these on the roads. But within 5 years, I think we will see more and more use of driverless vehicles, and it has great advantages for people with disabilities and older people who are unable to drive. I see another tipping point, which is the ability to dexterously manipulate objects, like this robot who is making balloon toys. But many factories rely on workers who use their hands in coordination with their eyes in a very agile way and dexterous way, and that right now is impossible to replicate in robots. If we're able to build robots with the manual dexterity of humans, that will displace many, many more jobs in industry. So it's another tipping point, something else to think about. And a third one is the grounding of understanding in the real world, because right now AIs don't understand anything about the world in which they exist, whereas humans do. But perhaps through robotics, AI intelligence can become grounded and they can start to make sense of the world that they're in. And I see some reasons why this might not happen. And one of the key ones here is that we're risk running out of the key raw materials we need to build AI and robots. Things like lithium and indium are due to run out perhaps in the next 10, 15 years. You know, Elon Musk has been buying up the world's supplies of lithium to make his electric cars. And I think he wants about half of the world's capacity of lithium to do that. And between Elon Musk and the Chinese, that doesn't leave much lithium for the rest of us. So we know that our species has had a huge impact on the Earth, so much so that we've named a new age, the Anthropocene, after the impact of human life on the planet. We can think perhaps of the evolution of ourselves from hunter-gatherers through agriculturalists, through the first industrial revolution, through the information revolution, and think about where we might go next. And we might call the next phase in Homo sapiens, Sapiens 5.0, to recognize this impact that technology is going to have on the way we are and the way we live. We know that we've always used our technologies. We've always built technologies to boost our own intelligence. And we can worry about artificial intelligence, but as long as humanity is building on artificial intelligence and using it to boost its own intelligence, then we can think of runaway artificial intelligence as feeding runaway human intelligence. We will always, I think, be good at things that robots and AIs are not so good at, and there will always be benefit from having humans and AIs working together. And our relationship with the technology will get closer. I think we may see more wearables. This is a system that can read your mind to some extent in a very limited way, and you can use that just by thinking to control devices. And I think this increased integration with our technology will only continue. So I proposed with some colleagues in Barcelona and Italy and at the Max Planck Institute a new program which we proposed to the European Union flagship call for science and technology for a sustainable Anthropocene. We've called it Sapiens 5.0. And the goal is to use AI and robotics to address the sustainability goals of the United Nations, to boost equality, to reduce poverty, to reduce hunger, to improve sustainability, and so on. And the idea is that we want to harness human and AI teams to address some of these most pressing problems of the economy, of the climate, of sustainability, and of equality. And we point to the International Panel on Climate Change and the work that's been done in understanding and predicting our global climate, and the way that has now impacted on policy decisions around the world and a global effort to reduce carbon emissions. We cannot control a world unless we can predict it. And right now, we cannot predict the path of something like the global economy. But with a huge effort from humans and AIs working together across the globe, we could make an impact in all these different areas to make the better place, make the world a better place. And of course, we also need to do this with international governance. And I would support this call from Wendell Wallach and his colleague Gary Merchant to coordinate technology governance at an international level so that we make sure that AI and robots are developed for the general good. Thank you very much.
نشكر الأستاذ الدكتور توني بريسكوت. المتحدث القادم هو الدكتور زهير الطه.
Thank you, Professor Tony Prescott. Now we call Dr. Zahira Taha to head Jerusalem Department Faculty of Mass Communication, Yarmouk University, Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan. He is heading the Higher Research and Higher Education Committee in the Ministry of Culture in Jordan. He is also working in the he was also a professor assistant in the media department in the University of Jordan. In the name of Allah, and peace be upon Prophet Muhammad and his followers and family. Thanks to Allah, the voice of truth is clear in this wonderful platform, and glad to be here in this conference in the UAE. And peace be upon the person who built this futuristic institution and who preserved it and who worked hard to keep it going. And peace be upon the UAE and its people and leaders. Thank you, Dr. Jamal Al-Suwaidi, the sponsor of knowledge and research in this wonderful center. My dear colleagues and scientists and guests, good afternoon. I'm glad to be among this host of scientists representing the modernism in among this elite of people. They represent the future of humanity. I would also to thank the caterers and the officials in this center for their professionalism, and I would like to thank Professor Abdullah Shami and other people who I wasn't able to mention their names. My dear colleagues, this topic, talking about the future of media and the media machine, especially after the third millennium, there has been a radical change in the communication process and in the media coverage, especially with the development of the communication devices. We are facing a very big challenge from the technology and the social media platforms. We find it having advantages and disadvantages that depends on the usage and on the regulations. Social media as a concept is the content, the media content that is personal and transferred from one party to the other. One is sending, the other one is a recipient through a medium or a social web or network with the freedom of messages. So these, for example, the web here is the internet. We were able, through the internet, we have the new media that we call it, and the platforms of social media was able to use this new media platform with all its technology and with all what this media offered to these networks, especially when in relation to the individual and the community. We know that the structure of the communication process and the development of the sending and the recipient also is different than before. So how does these new platforms impact the individual and the community, and how does it impact the media and the future of media generally? If we are going to talk about the beginnings of the social media platforms, a number of the social media sites have appeared in the late 90s, especially in 1995 and also 1979. There has been the direct link between individuals. I'm not going to go into details of the beginning and its development, but we are going to focus on what happened after the third millennium, and especially after Facebook and Twitter and WhatsApp and other applications and other networks and webs of and applications of social media. So the second stage witnessed the development of such platforms, especially after 2002 with Friend Dister, and 2003 we started using Facebook, and 2007 there is Skyrock and other social communication webs and networks that revolutionized the social structure. It's not just a tool, it's a tool that has content, and it's owned by the individual and the society. That's why it's called social networks. But these networks also presents political, environmental, health, and all of the other aspects of information. They are posted on YouTube and movies and all of the multimedia, multi-usage platforms. These, I'm not going to go into details through YouTube and Facebook. I want to talk about the radical changes and the new process and the new characteristics of social media. It opens the door for each person to have his own profile, a personal profile, and allows every individual to speak freely and write blogs and all of the fields, whether social, political, any sort of topic that you want. And it also opened the door for untraditional ways of communication and interaction. because earlier in media the level of feedback was very low, but when the feedback is high, media channels and media platforms actually have an impact, and that happened in social media platforms. That happened also, one of its characteristics also is mobility and flexibility. The drives behind using technological social communication platforms, some of these drives were number one is the domestic troubles. These platforms provide the individual with social stability and reference if this person is lacking such stability in his social life. So we find now that there is an absence of the social, the family role, and the social communication started to have an impact on the social structure, especially the family structure. Since such platforms are available to everyone, and that of course its usage depends on the regulations or maybe the rules within the family. So we don't want the parents to be monitors or supervisors. We just want them to be guiding or to guide their kids, to use it as a mean of entertainment, to and use it in the proper way, in a way that that does not make this person or the individual look for its meaning and worth in the social media. Number two is unemployment. Unemployment is one of the reasons why individuals seek a place or seek social media platforms to fill their time. Also shopping and finding jobs in job hunting. So social media platforms are no longer just a place to meet other people. It's now a very important and powerful marketing tool. Each tool is a weapon that can be used in a positive way or in a negative way. It's a window looking over the world through which the individual can interact with other cultures and other civilizations and see what's new. And it's also an opportunity to develop yourself, since it's open to others, since it's a platform to present the different opinions. Also, it could be used as a mean to diminish conflict between civilizations. And it also encourages, it could be also used in a way to encourage the relations within the single family. As for the redistribution of roles in the technology of social communication, in the traditional way of communication, the recipient was, his role was actually negative. He didn't have anything to do. But with the continuous development, the recipient role became more effective as it actually parallels the sender. In TV, you have live broadcast, you have audio, video, and with this new sort of media, in some countries, TV became just a decor. It became just something that is there in the living room, and it's not as effective as it used to be. In an American study about using the media, the traditional media platforms from the public, we found that it has been abandoned greatly especially after the 2000s, and the Americans are spending 53% of their time on social media platforms, and actually currently most of the developed countries, their usage of social media platforms is increasing rather than reading newspaper and radio and TV. Also, we have digital media, and there is also multimedia. The multimedia changed the role of the recipient. He became active. It also, this technology added or has a result in merging all of the different mediums into one. Each individual mean or medium of media became one. They're all merging together. The media sector became a bigger sector. The graphic sector and the visual sectors have been merged together, and it actually made freedom of media a fact, an inescapable fact. So this multimedia. This multimedia added to it resulted into having a revolution in the content, and also it increased the options in front of the consumer of media, and also the smartphones and video games added to the multimedia platforms, and of course added to the more abundance of TV, radio and stuff, and the traditional media platforms. So we all know the advantages of social media. I would like to, for the sake of time, to talk about how did we, because of this development, we used to focus on the content. Now, before we used to say that the medium or the platform is causing the message or delivering the message. Now it's more than that.
كيفية تأثير تكنولوجيا الاتصال الاجتماعي.
How does the social media technologies affect the individual and the society? The technique of the communication process is different, as it's now the sender would send his message coded, full of meanings and ideas to the recipient, and then the recipient is going to receive it according to his own reference. So a frame of reference. So the person receiving the message or the idea or the opinion, then he is going to once he receives the opinion or idea, is going to review it and then see if it suits him or not, and then probably through the reference of the frame of reference that they have probably can judge it on several levels. And the first stage of this process is to filter these information, and then if a person approves these information would be moved into the knowledge storage. And of course, when a person distinguishes between different messages through values and ideas and opinions and impressions and so on and so off, it moves into the memory storage, and then it starts into transferring into mental image, and the mental image shapes the human behavior. And in the new technology, there has been changes in this issue. Why did this change happen, especially after the millennium? since we have a lot of changes in our society, especially in the third world community and the third world countries, because of these messages. They have certain ways to attract the listener or to attract the recipient. They have certain effects to affect their frame of reference and go straight to the mental image, and that may change the behavior of human beings radically. And these are the major potential and major powers of such messages. The objectives, it may have several objectives, whether emotional, behavioral, or any other objective. So we're now going to talk about the future freedom of such platforms. Now we have a new sort of journalism, which is the mobile journalism. Since our mobile devices carry very high technology, people are now using it as an editing platform. The journalists would probably air live certain events, or probably send a voice note or anything through our the mobile or broadcast. So these open editing platforms are open. They are limitless due to the new technology. About the effects of such technology, the meat device is a very dangerous one. And if the enemy would be given the choice of using military power or the media power, they would use the media power, because of its impact on the individual and the community. Because the person who has this microphone of the media can control the masses and can direct their opinion and program it, and maybe mobilize the community or mobilize the people according to their own goals and objectives. Therefore, it's very dangerous that certain groups or individuals would use this tool into delivering or spreading or disseminating their poisonous ideas. And that was actually happening recently by some of the terrorist groups, especially by ISIS.
أخطار الكبيرة على الإعلام.
On the other hand, it has certain risks on the individuals, as the individuals are now casting aside the moderate messages delivered by moderate people with moderate opinions, and now going to the extremes. Now the digital media platforms are going to be highly competitive with the social platforms, the social media platforms. All this poses a risk on the social, economic, and political culture of the society. If we do not have certain regulations to control it, the negative side is going to take over the positive side, especially especially with those people who use media for their own objectives and goals. We prefer that our media would be provided with high quality, high tech, so that we can have more of a better impact on the citizens. The social media platforms, since they are free and open, the users of it may be an easy prey for the intelligence authorities and agencies who are going to use it to their own objectives. Therefore, so we need to focus on putting a frame for it in order to prevent those who want to wash the brains of the young people. So in this occasion, I would like to mention something. I was there when President Obama visited one of the high schools, and one of the president asked the president, Mr. President, I would like to become the president of the United States of America. What's your advice? So Obama said, if you want to become a president, you shouldn't post everything on the internet, since this is going to be used against you later on. He just wants to guide the American people, saying that whatever you post on social media is going to be monitored by other parties or sites that are enemies to the United States, and they may use it as for their advantage against the United States. And of course, we know that everything posted on social media is used by the intelligence agencies, and they through the posts and the content of social media, they pinpoint the weakness points in the society. I'm sorry for taking too long. I would like to thank you, thank the chair of the session, and for the ECSSR. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Zahir. The coming speaker is Dr. Liang Shizing, an associate professor, Department of Mechanical Engineering in Khalifa University in United Arab Emirates. He's been working there since 2014, and before he had many titles. He was a director in the postgraduate in Almos National Laboratory, and he worked in the CNT technology and as an associate professor in Nanyang Technological University. He has a lot of important contribution in nanocarbon, including and his interests include research, nanotechnology, and various specialties nanotechnologies.
Good afternoon. I think it's afternoon already, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to give this talk in here. Thanks the organizer for invitation. So my topic for this presentation is nanotechnology, application, and implication. More specifically, I will narrow down the scopes of the talk into the flexible electronics and human future. I will introduce a little bit of background about nanotechnology and their application, then I will quickly move to the flexible electronics, give you a reason why we need this flexible electronics. And then we introduce some research work we have done in Khalifa University. Finally, we give a little bit discussion on the implication and the concern. Nanotechnology is a very broad term, so it can refer to many things. For example, usually refer to anything developed material and the device has been to have this specific property, but more especially in the nanometer scale. So along the history, the development of nanotechnology actually passed several, I think I list here 3 stages. At the beginning, people have the strong interest on how to develop the technique or tools to handle the material in the nanometer scale. For example, we can characterize this nanomaterial. It's manipulate the atoms in the atom scale. So always prepare some material. So all those tools, they really contribute to the development of nanotechnology. But later on, the development is focusing on the new material and the new property. For example, we have several new materials come out discovered in the recent years. The first one, this ball, is a bucket ball made from carbon. The second one, this is the carbon nanotube. This is graphene. So all these nanomaterials, they are very special compared with the counterpart previously. They have a marvelous property we never discovered before. But however, as the time going on, we cannot be satisfied by this discovery. We have more interest on how we use this material and the technique in the practical application. So actually, nanomaterial and nanotechnology already penetrate in everywhere of the section. So in this time, it's very hard to talk about nanotechnology without mentioning their application. So later on, I will give you several examples to show how and what we use this nanotechnology and nanomaterial in application. The first one, secondly, is the energy. So energy is a very important industry, especially in UAE. So nanomaterial actually play a very big role in this research area. So for example, we can use this nanomaterial for energy conversion, also can be used for energy storage and for conservation. So this depends how we use it and how we design the device. It could be the combination of new material and a new idea. For example, use as nanostructural solar cell. So then this can increase the efficiency significantly. So the other way we use the nanomaterial could be traditional. We can use this nanomaterial in the traditional, for example, solar thermal system. So it still can improve a lot the productivity. So another area I think we need to pay attention is the energy storage. So specifically carbon nanotube and graphene, all these advanced carbon nanomaterial will have a big role in this lithium battery or super capacitor. The second area is related to the healthcare, because the nanomaterial is found they have a lot of function or role in this healthcare. For example, can be used as imaging, drug delivery. Yesterday, some people mentioned the speaker. So also can be used as this special therapy. So compared with all the previous material, all these methods, so nanomaterial and nanotechnology had a lot of advantage over them. So for example, they can be used as targeted therapy. So they provide higher resolution in imaging, so and so on. So the third area I want to mention in the application is for the environment. So environment, actually, as technology going on, we have a lot of concern in the environment. So this picture to show the residual medicine in the drinking water, so in the global distribution. So a lot of countries have very high concentration of this medicine in the water. So this is the issue we need to solve it. So currently, so nanotechnology or nanomaterial are playing the role in here. So for example, we can use nanomaterial to solve this problem by using the principle of ozonation, filtration, absorbent, or photocatalysis. The material involved actually have a lot of nanoparticle and there's a carbon nanomaterial. But more likely, I want to come to my focus. So for today, I want to mention something about flexible electronics. So this is an increasing area, have a great potential in the market. We already have some products in the market, like iWatch and this Google Glass. We already have some. But here, I want to raise this importance of this flexible electronics above the well-being of the human being. I like to stress in a way this flexible electronic actually relate to the human survival in the future. I try to explain why I can make such a statement. So why Professor Tanya just mentioned something about IT and AI. So we have significant this technology in the modern state. One is computer, another is internet. As a result of these two inventions, we have a consequence we call this information explosion. So this is well known by most of us. But here, the last picture to show, we have a big gap between the information generated and the ability we can analyze, we can handle. So this gives a significant impact on a lot of things, for example, in the study. So for example, in the current time, so every young people maybe take 20 years to finish his elementary school or to the colleges, to the PhD. Then he can be considered as an expert in some area. But as the time going on, we have so many knowledge generated. So it's impossible for any individual to handle all the information in the area. So most likely, we will have a time, so people can take all their lifetime to study the knowledge and handle and understand the major concept, then come to the end of his life. So that's terrible. So of course, we can slow down our activity, our progress, but however, we have competitor. So if on the Earth, the human being is the only species, we have no much worry. We have the competitor, as Professor Tanya just mentioned, is AI, it's artificial intelligence. So I have this picture to show what's the significant impact. This is a picture to show how this artificial intelligence evolved along the time. So actually, they start from very simple machine with a very simple feedback and control to a state right now they can replace human being in a lot of job position. And also you need to keep in mind, so this evaluation, they only take 50 years, roughly around 50 years. So this kind of evaluation, if come to the by all, its counterpart, usually takes several thousand million years. So they can finish it and accomplish this evaluation within 50 years. So it's very straightforward. We can argue in the near future, we will have these species. They are very similar like a human being. They have all the function like us, but however, they are smarter. They are much smarter than us. So then, how soon? So this thing we're going to be happen. So this is the picture actually similar to just now. So people can use the previous development trend to predict this timing. From this picture, roughly 40, maybe 20 to 50 years, so this artificial intelligence will have the similar intelligence as a human being. Why should we worry? I still have a little bit of overlap with Professor Tony. So this is direct evidence to show that artificial intelligence in some area is already in the similar level of human being or even surpassed. So this is a board game. This board game, the machine is developed by the Google. It's called AlphaGo. They outweigh the human being as a world champion almost without resistance. I also need to emphasize the significance here. So this game is a little bit special. So according to the previous computer game, computer always dominate on the human being. That's because they can map all the possibility. They can do the calculation. But this game is supposed to be no computer right now can have a full calculation capability to know all the consequences. So they have to think like us, like a human being, make a decision before we understand. So this is according to the deep learning. So then certainly some people say we have a little bit of worry like this. So in the future, after many years, on the Earth, we come to another new species to represent the human being. Of course, I'm not negative on that part. I still very positive on our future of the human being. So the solution is what? So first, on one side, we need AI because information handle we cannot handle by our brain. The second, eventually they will be smarter than us. That means we have no control over them. So what we can do? So best solution is that we do the collaboration, like in the real world we are doing, right? But this collaboration cannot be in the lower level because we cannot handle our future to the species like this robotic just by their mercy, right? So we need something like this. I said we need integration rather than the collaboration. So this solution is that in some way we can integrate with artificial intelligence so that in the future we are still human being, but we with the similar calculation power or information this handling power as AI. So then come down to the research. So then what's the interest of research if we try to targeting along this direction? Actually, we have two directions. So one, we equip us, the human being, with more capability on the calculation, on the information handling. So let's say from this left-hand side, we start from human being to a new human being. So we need something like portable electronics. So like you are doing right now, you have the iPhone, iPad, computer, so this already happened. So then next is the wearable electronics. It's happening, but not fully developed yet. So in the future, so we will have this embedded electronics inside in our body. So the other way is that we give the computer or say the robots some function of the human being so that they can approach to us. They have the similar value system as us, so we can easier for collaboration. So along this way, we have the self-survival function, self-learning, self-sensation, and reasoning. So in all of this, I can identify several areas for the research. One is flexible electronics, then bioelectronics, and artificial intelligence. For example, for current, this flexible electronics is the foundation, and it's easier to start with. So then, I will report some progress of our research in the Khalifa. So I have this 4-part. This try to simulate the function along the previous 2 directions. I cannot go through the very detail, so I just quickly go to the main idea, so why we need this. So first, we developed very elastical conductor with very stable resistance. So this is the basic element we use for the flexible electronics. You need a conductor. They can resist to the, they can adapt to the mechanical deformation, but also have very constant this electrical property. All the existing material cannot do it, simply because they follow the Ohm's law. When you change the length, you change the shape, they change the resistance. So a lot of our approach had been tried in the area, but the most successful one, I believe, is our approach. So we start with the form of a carbon nanotube, this 3-dimensional structure, but we use this nano welding skill to connect interconnect this network of the carbon nanotube so that we can make an elastic conductor. They can withstand a lot of mechanical deformation, but also stable in the electrical property. So this is some performance. Just in one word, they are very stable. They are also stable in the environment. So they are lightweight, they are high specific conductivity, so resistivity change is the lowest among all the material available. So this is one. The second one, we developed a device we call the Super Capacitor. So this is similar like a battery. This is an energy storage device to withstand the mechanical deformation. I bypass all the detail. The starting is a carbon nanomaterial again. So we draw this material into a very super aligned thin film and wrap them in an elastic fiber so that they can withstand a lot of torsion deformation. Then we make a device, we check this resistivity along the deformation. Again, they are very super compared with all other material. So at the conclusion here, so this material can withstand a torsion deformation 20,000 radian per meter. So its stretching limit is 650%. So the device from here actually quite stable. You look on the top one, that means this device can provide constant this energy when during the deformation. So this is one. The third one, we have this electronic scan. Basic idea, we use this fabric, which is passive, but we have some functional element to add up so that they have the this mechanical response. So then we can use it as a sensor. And this sensor is very sensible to the deformation, but also give the spatial resolution. This one can be used at a lot of application. We can also use some special design to get this touchness. That means without press. So this is based on the principle of a material we call the graphene oxide. So it's a type of the graphene related. So they are very sensitive to the moisture. So when human being approach, so sorry, I have limited time, I bypass. When human being, for example, human finger approach to the material, the moisture concentration will change so that they have some electrical response. Because of the nanomaterial can be patterned into very small scale, so they have very high this spatial resolution. So last one, so memory device. So because the memory device is a very fundamental device for the reasoning for this computer, for example. So we start from this carbon nanotube fiber. So this is fiber made from carbon nanotube, but we combine with the graphene together. We make a junction in the between so that they have some kind of memory function. So this is the result. You can see it's very similar like it's a digital device. They have on state, they have the off state. Switching between on and one and off, you will get the digital number 0 and 1. So we can use for the reasoning, for the information storage. So all those things, not only on the research side, actually they have immediate application. For example, the first, those sensors could be used as this for structural health monitoring. So in the big structure, so it's very difficult to check the quality, the health. So it's better we can embed some kind of sensor inside, we can connect into the network. So continuous monitor their health. So similarly for the human health monitoring. And the last one is for the wearable electronics. So this one actually is extremely important because according to this iTech EX Exchange, this company, so they said 2027, so annual this market is 150 billion for the wearable electronics. So of course, this is only for the immediate, but for our initial interest or motivation, you see future, we can either along this way, we can equip this software with more human function, or ultimately we can have a very full integrate with our human brain, with the robotic, with the computer, so that we get a new generation of human being with the electronic inside, we still have a bio inside. So we have no much argument between, so AI is good or is bad. Finally, I touch a little bit about the concern. The AI, I think, is a big area I don't want to touch. That's a lot of concern, but I want to talk something about this nanomaterial itself. So toxicity actually is a big concern in the nanomaterial. There's a lot of research, but however, the conclusion is still very debating. So we have no much conclusion yet. The reason is that we have two challenges here. So carbon nanotube, they usually change the shape. Because they aggregate together. So that making this study is very challenging. The second one is the nanomaterial have very strong interaction with the surrounding. So any kind of testing, we have some complicated problem. But however, we still have managed to find out the data for one particular material here. For example, carbon nanotube. We have all the data studied here. Conclusion is that, so if we well functionalize the carbon nanotube, they are very safe to the animal. So also for the human being, potentially.
I think we are running out of time.
Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, wow. So 3 different, and I try to link them together. And I'll start my first question to Dr. Tony. I'll give you an example of where my question leads. So you have a car, an autonomous car, that was programmed using some probability theory, statistics, and information, and some computing powers, and what we call artificial intelligence. All those decision makings have been given to the car that is self-driving, and there is a dog in front of the car. The car was programmed to protect the people inside the car. A natural human, when he sees the dog, he will either turn right or left. The car was programmed to protect the people inside the car, not the people outside, or the animal outside the car. Would any time that machine will have conscious?
I think there's two questions there. Sorry. I think there's two questions there. One is about the morality of the choice that the car is making, and how can we program AIs and robots to make good choices that are moral. And the second question is whether AIs can do that in a self-conscious, self-aware way that humans do. I think the answer to both questions is yes, but I don't think you need to have a self-aware AI or car for it to be able to make the right decision. I think we can reach our own judgments about what the car should do in that situation, and we can build the car to make the choice that we think is the right one. In the future, we may well want to program robots and AIs so that they can make good decisions in situations where we can't foresee what that situation is, which I think is what you're getting at, is, you know, some unforeseen circumstance. We want the car to do the right thing, but we can't always guess all the possibilities that can happen. So in that case, I think we need to find a way to create what's been called machine morality, the ability of machines to reason to the best behaviors based on ethical principles. And in that situation, we would provide the machine with the ethical principles, and it would do the reasoning based on those to make the right decision. I still don't think it needs self-awareness to do that. Mm-hmm. I think we will eventually probably build machines that have self-awareness, perhaps similar to our own, or certainly perhaps similar to the self-awareness of other animals. And I think they will achieve that as a result of being embodied, having physical robot bodies that live in the world and have experience. But you know, that topic's hotly debated, but that's my personal view.
Okay, thank you. So we'll open the floor to one question to the Professor. We go first here.
Good evening. My name is Ahmed Al-Maraghi, Chief Editor of Akhbar Braille in United Arab in Egypt. I would like to thank Dr. Jamal for his kind invitation and the hospitality, and I would like to thank the staff of the center who knows how to surpass success to the level of amazement. I actually feel so proud to have such an amazing center in the Arab region. So my question is for Dr. Zuhair. Among this unbelievable amount of technological development in media, as you have mentioned, how can we reach the marginalized categories and people in our societies in the Arab region? I'm going to ask a practical question based on my experience as working in the People of Determination, as the chief editor of of an institution. Everyone working in it has visual disability. In Egypt, we have near 11 million disabled or people of determination. And according to the foreign statistics, this number may increase by 5 million.
So the question is, do you think that this category, this number, is worthy of more attention of us from social media platforms using such capabilities in order to reach them, as we still have marginalized categories in our region? Thank you very much for the question. I too am a journalist in the field. I've been working in the field for 20 years alongside the academic part. There is no doubt that these platforms with that high technology platforms, they can definitely provide services for those marginalized categories in our communities. Actually, they are targeted, and certain programs and applications and strategies are implemented to take care of the people of determination. And in Egypt and in other countries, they have certain plans to take care of these people, and there are formal and informal organizations placed in Egypt, United Arab Emirates, and the Jordan as well. And there is no doubt that we are going to benefit from this technology to reach and service this category. There is no doubt that they are going to benefit from this technological development and scientific development. Mr. Labeid.
First of all, the graph you put up of the GDP, of the earnings over time. So GDP statistics are okay for comparing for short periods of time, but over a longer period of time, they're not very good, because especially when you're getting new products in. And I think it's safe to say that a lot of the improvements in our standard of living from the 80s, which is where you think sort of flatten out, till now, are associated with new products, which are not picked up by long-term GDP. So, that's a common narrative, but it's one that needs, it reflects just as much poorness in the quality of the data as it does genuine stagnation among those groups. And the other remark I would make is that, so you're right, you're absolutely right that the report by those two researchers didn't mention the destruction of jobs, didn't mention the creation. I would add to that human entrepreneurs, if they have, human entrepreneurship, just as it creates new inventions, also creates use. If they find there's a lot of resources lying around, including human resources, it's almost inevitable that some visionary will come up with some way of using all these humans, putting them to work, giving them something to do. So that pushes me towards a little bit towards the optimistic side. But I agree with you that it's a challenge, but I'm confident that for all the brains in the world, somebody will come up with a way to make use of all these humans. And finally, you forgot to mention the snooker in your summary of Sheffield. Sheffield's most famous for the crucible, if anything else. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, so we have a very famous snooker tournament. And some quite good football teams. And you're right, I think all data has limitations, and the graph that I showed certainly has. I mean, what is striking about that is that the two lines parallel each other in the post-war period up till the 70s, and then they diverge. But it's true that people, even on low incomes today, have flat-screen TVs and mobile phones. So it's not that absolute poverty hasn't improved. We've made huge improvements in absolute poverty over the past 100 years. I think we've gone from 80% of the population of the world in absolute poverty to under 20%. And that's technology is responsible a lot for that transformation. But I think the relative wealth issue is what stands out to people. I can only speak for my society, which is the UK, but what we saw with the Brexit vote was that the people in London and some of the major cities voted overwhelmingly for Europe, but the people in the small towns and in the countryside felt marginalized, and they felt that they weren't benefiting from globalization. And I think if you look across all of the developed countries, you see the same trend of a divergence in wealth, and I think this hollowing out effect that was mentioned, the Deloitte effect, it risks making that worse. So the proposal that people have put forward that maybe we'll need something like a universal income is something that we should, I think, actively explore, because there are many ways in which people can contribute to society without necessarily doing a paid job. And one example I would give is caring for other people. So right now, certainly in the UK, most couples that have children go out to work, both of them go out to work. So if we have less time when we have to work, we can have more time caring for our children and also for the older members of our family. So up till now, we didn't recognize that as the kind of work that should be rewarded. But I think in the future, we might think, well, actually, if you're caring for your relative, that's something that serves society, and people should be rewarded for that.
The next question, I think I will go to Professor Zing. Lian. We are an oil-producing country. We know that solar energy is becoming very cheap and cheaper every day. I think we should be worried about the new type of batteries are going to be having storage for a long time and longer storage for the solar energy. How far is nanotechnology from producing the next generation of batteries? How worried should we be?
Okay, first is how this far is a new technology battery. The second one is why UAE should worry about that, right? I think the battery being motivated by this electrical car now developed very fast. It's lithium battery. Another one is called as a Super Capacitor. They provide a higher power but lower energy density. I think development is very fast. You can use an example like is Tesla. Tesla is using the lithium, this iron battery, so it's already in the market. So actually right now, China have very strong support on this electrical car, on the battery part. So every time I visit China, I have a lot of collaborators there. They are talking about graphene, carbon nanotube, how to incorporate into the electrode for this development. I think it's very far. But the second question, I think UAE don't have to worry. Why? Because this battery is just energy storage device. They are not energy produced device, right? For example, in the traditional electrical grid, we always have some kind of concern. For example, instability. So you have the peak hour, you have the rest hour, either by the production of the oil or is electricity made by the wind or by the energy, especially for this green energy. So when you need them, they don't offer. So when you don't need them, they have a lot. So then the only solution, I think, is energy storage. So we can use some big energy storage device or system to balance in between. So maybe, for example, I guess purely by personal opinion, in the future, maybe the UAE don't have to sell the pure oil, it's a crude oil. You can sell some kind of energy stored in some device, for example.
Okay. Thank you. The floor, any questions? We have lady in the center.
My name is Laila Khalifa from Etihad newspaper. My question is for Dr. Tanya. There are 3 questions, but a very quick one. You said that the material used in materials are about to be over. So does that force a problem or a challenge to artificial intelligence manufacturing in the future? In the United Kingdom, do you have regulations governing working in the robotics and artificial intelligence? And are you required to report to certain security institutions about the development that you're doing? And also, is this person working on artificial intelligence going to pose a threat to the rest of human nature, for example? That's sort of the 3 questions.
So the first question was about the sustainability of computers. I think it's a serious threat that we don't think about enough. If you look at the raw materials that go into making electronics today. They use many, many different kinds of rare earth metals, and the world supplies of these are quite limited, and we're using them up rapidly. We have the biggest effort in mining that we've ever had. You also have to think about the energy consumption. So we are right now building huge computer banks to trade cryptocurrencies, and I read that these are now using more energy than the whole island of Ireland, the Republic of Ireland. So there is a huge cost of energy in many of these devices. AlphaGo, a colleague of mine, estimated that in the 1 week when it was playing Lee Sedol, it used more energy than Lee Sedol would have used in his whole lifetime. So if we compare robots against AI at the moment, the robots are very heavy, very inefficient, they can't be recycled, they are built of expensive materials which are hard to obtain. So if we imagine that there are going to be all these robots in society doing all these jobs for us, I think there isn't the resource to do that, to build that, to maintain that. And we're going to come as a shock in 20 years' time when we realize that all these things are running out. The second question was about regulation of AI research. In the UK right now, I don't have to ask for permission to do any research in AI. I have to ask for permission to research with humans or with animals, but I can do AI research without permission. Do I think it should be regulated? I think we need international opinions and discussion about this, and I think rather than having strict rules which will limit the development, I think people need to develop AI in an open way. So they need to say what their goals are and what they're trying to do. And I'm particularly worried about large companies, such as the big internet companies who are developing AI, but they're not being at all transparent about their motives or where they're going with it. I think with the universities, we have an obligation to publish, so there's less to worry about.
Thank you. I think we're running out of time. I think one thing I'd like to have in related to social media and artificial intelligence, maybe one day AI will be there in WhatsApp, so that whenever somebody tells me good morning, I say good evening, good morning, and when you say salam alaikum, say wa alaikum salam. So all these messages are automated rather than we replying to them and spending all our time on this social media. I think thank you all for attending this session, and thank you for the invitation, Dr. Jamal, and we hope that you have an enjoyable session and have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you for all the participants in the proceedings of the fourth session. And now for Ms. Amal Ahmadi, who's going to read the concluding speech that includes all the recommendations of the conference and also the closing note from the General Director, Jamal Sanad Al-Suwaidi, of the General Director of the Center.
السلام عليكم حضورنا الكرام.
Peace be upon you all, esteemed guests. For the 23rd annual conference, the participants in the 23rd annual conference organized by the ECSSR in its hometown of Abu Dhabi for the 20th and 21st of March 2018, titled Future Studies, a message of appreciation and thanks to His Highness Sheikh Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahyan, may God protect him, for his keen interest and support for all the international developments in order to enhance the place and the role of the UAE and its position in the world in order to achieve the highest levels of competency, and the participants also appreciated His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan for his interest in being prepared for the future through all means, through certain strategic strategies and plans, especially for the role of the youth in order to make a brighter future for the coming generations. And they've also sent a message of appreciation and thanks for the General Director of the ECSSR for his role in the future studies and its major connection to the major change that the world is witnessing, and for the development of the UAE and its future for its future aspirations under the wise leadership of the country. And also, we've presented all of these special and experienced paperwork and researches, and we've come up with the coming recommendations. First of all, the keen interest of the late Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan in foreseeing the future and planning for it and connecting it to the present and to the past, and also connecting all the governmental institutes for the plan of the UAE, and due to its importance in foreseeing the future and the rapid changes that the humanity is experiencing, through putting the right corresponding strategies and plans in order to enhance the opportunities that are presented by these developments and the threats that might come out of it. Also, to enhance the roles of the research and development centers and to connect it with national policy-making institutions. Also, to enhance investment in knowledge economy in order to achieve sustainable development with an interest and emphasis on coping up with the rapid developments in information technology, especially the Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, robotics revolutions, and other fields that are the basics of the fourth industrial revolution that the world is witnessing right now. Fifth, to have a major interest in coping with the opportunities and threats that and to enhance national pride and to enhance and to focus on data analytics and to cope with the international changes and to achieve sustainable development. Sixth, to have more emphasis on the developments in human society developments and characteristics like tolerance, diversity, and accepting the other, and its effect on and the other aspects of human development like technology and political aspects that are connected to human beings, with more interest in studying ethics and to enhance values, especially the value of tolerance, due to its vital role in human development, cultural development, and to achieve development and stability. Also, to focus more on searching for alternative means for energy and using modern and developed means, especially for the UAE and the GCC, to preserve their special role in the international markets in the future. Also, to focus on to analyze the development that are happening in the politics and the strategic developments of the region and the international society as a whole, in order to be able to cope with these security and political changes, due to its strong attachment to the future of development in the region. Ninth, to develop new ways to enhance economical cooperation between countries, due to especially for by using supply chains and in which several companies or several countries rather are going to cooperate to create a certain product that is going to be assembled in another country, for example. Also, to increase the cooperation and to enhance the cooperation between Arab countries in order to put a limit to foreign intervention in its matters. Recommendation 10, to develop strategies on how to deal with cybersecurity, since cyber threats are one of the most important threats that we are facing, and in order to face them and to have the preemptive means to deal with them. Also, to deal with solutions to aging, and also to follow up the devolution the development in nanotechnology, especially in transformation of energy and storing it. The last recommendation is to enhance the role of artificial intelligence in the future. Thank you. And now, esteemed guests, we're going to conclude our 23rd annual conference, Future Studies, with a concluding remark by His Excellency Professor Jamal Sanad Al-Suwaidi, Director General, Emirates Center for Strategic Studies and Research, ECSSR, it's going to be my honor to say it on his behalf. Peace be upon you all. Esteemed guests, peace be upon you all. It is my pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, as we conclude the 23rd annual conference regarding future studies that has been held over the span of 2 days, to thank you on behalf of me and my colleagues in the ECSSR and on behalf of all of you as researchers and thinkers and experts, our appreciation and thanks to His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi. May God preserve him, for his continued support and endless support to the ECSSR and its research activities. And ladies and gentlemen, I would like to tell you and to declare my appreciation and my thanks to all what you have provided here and presented here in the conference, that you have enriched with your research papers and your participation. Ladies and gentlemen, you have noticed we have noticed the keen interest and the vital role that has been played by our researchers and esteemed guests in various topics that have, and your dialogues and discussions have enriched that the fact that future studies are a necessity for countries and societies that are looking towards enhancing their role in the world and to develop and to make sure that their societies live in the best way possible. And there is no doubt such conferences like this one is of utmost importance, and we are going to do our best in order to implement our recommendations in order to enhance the development and changes that our country is witnessing and that our people are living through. Ladies and gentlemen, the model that the UAE is giving today, or the example that the UAE is playing today, requires from all of us our strongest efforts in order to achieve our sustainable goals that we are all trying to achieve. Again, welcome again, and thank you very much for enriching the discussions through these sessions that have been going on on the span of 2 days. Peace be upon you all. At the end of this 23rd annual conference, Future Studies, I would like to thank you again on behalf of Jamal Sanad Al-Suwaidi, the General Director of the Emirates Center for Strategic Studies and Research, to all of our participants, and we would like to invite you to the lunch area to enjoy your lunch, and thank you very much. Looking forward to seeing you again. Peace be upon you all.